Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Right. Okay. Just get everything open. So, I did some tidying up of the code that we had been working on recently. So, let me just finish getting everything all ready. I'm not sure if I got all my sources correct in OBS. Swear to God, this was normally more like this. Now it's more like that. I'm trying to remember where I should be. Sometimes I accidentally whack it. I can see that the thing needs tightening over there. So it's going to probably be a bit too low down until I fix that. 1 second. That seems better placed, I think. Who knows? We're talking about millimeters of difference here. Okay. Okay, where are we? What's going on? Is everything connected? Waiting to see if YouTube updates. But I think YouTube is really out of sync, so that's fine. Okay. So, where are we up to? Like I said, I tidied some things up. Just trying to tidy up the code. Last time, we fixed the linting issues. Just checking before I really get into it that everything does indeed look correct. Okay, I'm going to go with it's correct. And if someone tells me otherwise, then I can have a look. Okay. Let's see, where are we up to? So, as I said, I tidied things up. What I didn't actually check is if all of the tests pass. Okay, they do. Good. That'd be annoying if they didn't. So, last time, the main problem... Oh yeah, I need to move these ligatures. I completely forgot about that. Ligature. Ligature? Let's see if I can... Z disable ligatures. Turn off ligatures. This is one of the things that annoys me about Z. is it seems a common recommendation whenever you change anything is to restart Z, which is a bit annoying because I want to just stream and I don't have to reset up my OBS sources. Let's see if this works. So, buffer font family features, alt, false. Now I have to remember where I saw. Oh, there we go. There was a ligature, I think. Okay, that's better. That's better. I have to try and remember all of the other random things that annoy me with Z, so then I can figure out how to configure it to behave as I like it. Okay. So let me. So I remember last time I wanted to prove that the wait mechanic worked from a second service. And what that means is I'm validating that it's actually getting the information about the job from the store, which would be shared between the services. So when I say from a second service, I don't mean from a second process necessarily, even though the same concept would map over to the second service. But that's hold on, I need to. I have very groovy music playing, but it's too groovy for thinking. So I'm going to find some slightly less groovy music to think to. Okay. So Warhammer 40,000 Children of the Omnissiah. There we go. Right. So this would prove that when we do have multiple services in the future, multiple processes in the future, that if they shared the same store, that they would see the same data, right? And there wouldn't be any fighting as such. So that was the first thing I wanted to check. Let me just see the notes. The next thing is we need to be able to enqueue jobs as a batch, because right now the only way you can enqueue jobs is singularly, which would mean multiple queries to the database, which I'd rather avoid. And potentially, though I'm not sure. Oh, the light's gone. Let's hope it comes back. If not, be very atmospheric. There we go. We have lights. I'm a bit tired, so it's taking me a while to rethink where I was. So we will need to enqueue the batch. Yes. So to avoid unnecessary calls to the database, and additionally, I don't know right now because I didn't test it, but I don't know if multiple jobs would put themselves in different cycles. I can't remember how I coded it. Oh no, that's right. It wouldn't put them on different cycles because when it makes a claim, it's claiming groups of them at once. So I think it wouldn't necessarily make that aspect faster because the claim still happens all at once. Let me close everything, because for some reason the way my brain works is it works based on what files are open in the IDE. So where am I going? Service, I think. For some reason, I feel like I remember less where the code is now. Here we go, start loops. Okay. Just trying to remind myself how it all works. Yeah, so we figure out the amount of free slots available to pick up depending on the amount of concurrency we want, defined by the global semaphore. That's free slots. Probably we check it based on the queue as well. It goes to the store. Can I go to implementation? Go to oh, I found it. Good. Okay. Where was I? Go to implementation. Yeah, so right now in a transaction we loop over things, but this is for claiming. Really, I should be batching this too. And why do I loop over it? Claim candidate to record. I prefer to be batching as much as possible when talking to the database to avoid an n+1 type situation. Okay, one second. I'm gonna get a drink. All right. Okay. So I think when I'm talking about batching, the first thing I want to worry about is enqueuing. Just enqueuing a job. So need to get used to, like, how do I just go here? Can I just go here? Can I go here? Yeah, okay. Go to implementation. Yeah, so I think we would like to find a way of batching this logic because quite often people will be like, I want to enqueue 50 jobs. So we shouldn't need to make 50 calls to the database to enqueue those jobs. And that wouldn't even be 50 calls here, that would be 100. And do I not even do this inside of a transaction? Does it need to be inside a transaction? Let's make a note here. To do, should this be in a transaction? The answer is yes. Why didn't I put it in a transaction? I'm trying to think what I was thinking of at the time. Surely this should be in a transaction. I like to avoid transactions as much as possible because if you can get away with not putting something in a transaction, it does make scaling a database, it tends to make it easier. Especially when you're trying to have high concurrency with SQLite. Having as little transactions as possible is actually beneficial. Why would I not want this to be a transaction? That's just the only question I'm asking myself now. I might be missing something. Well, hold on, I already know what the spec ID is. So this would just be spec.id. I'm just trying to think why Okay, well, we'll shove it in a transaction. I would have thought that I would have thought that through when I was coding it, but okay. I mean, it's unlikely to be beneficial because, yeah, it's unlikely to be beneficial. But either way, there you go. Let's see. So, what is it I actually want to prove first thing? The first thing I would like to prove, does this everything pass still? Let's assume the answer is yes. The first thing I'd like to prove. Oh, sorry. I did I did the mistake. This is the very typical mistake when you use SQLite, which is running the light's gone, which is running a query within a transaction that's not related to the transaction. It's got a different vibe when the light's here and it's off. It's far more ominous of a stream. I think I'm gonna have to buy a replacement light. Okay. Let's assume the light won't come back on, and I'll just be needlessly ominous. So, oh, the light's back on. So, yeah. So that's a very typical mistake to make with SQLite, where you forget to use the transactions queries object, and SQLite tends to lock things and get stuck in this like locked state if you don't use the transaction context within a transaction. Okay. So that's all good. Yeah, so let's worry about the first test. So all I want to know primarily, and this is really just a smoke test, so to speak. Which is if I create a second. What did I just do? Okay. If I create a second service, would that second service be able to respect the knowledge that the first service was able to pick up and process that job? Basically, is everything being persisted properly to the storage, and we're not just running it in memory from the first service? Now, I'm fairly certain the answer is yes, everything is working as expected, but it's just good to prove. So, welcome. What's my nice default setup that I like to use? Something like this. where's the, isn't it recording worker? I think that's the default one I like to use, recording worker. Something like this. This looks good. Grab that. Let's just put you here because I don't think we actually have to repeat you like this. So we'll be clear because we're going to start two services. So let's say start A. And then we will enqueue a job into it. So when you enqueue a job, it returns its handler. Enqueue. Once again, I get flashbanged with all the choice. So this will be my first runner. So let's state this as run A. And then we'll have to enqueue the job into it, which would just be the args, right? So welcome args. I think, yeah. So we can do user ID, and then let's just say user 1. Require no error. Let's just say enqueue. Okay. So why is this a problem? We need to, yeah, there we go, service. Okay. So this is going to be the service that enqueues it. Now we're going to want to create a service which points to the same storage. But we don't need the whole scaffolding of having the pool set up or the worker or anything. We only need it to be able to wait. So really the second service is really just a fragment of a service, but it proves the concept that it is stored in the same shared store. So let's have a look at, we should have access to the querier here, don't we? Querier. So we can say run a database. So we're pointing to the same database. And let's just reuse the clock service. So we're creating a second store reference to the same database that A has. And then let's see if we can create a service from this. Worker domain.new service. We pass in the store. And then for options, worker domain. So we'll just pass in the clock, I think. Worker domain with clock. Run a dot clock. And then we can have handle B. New handle. We'll reference the same ID because that's the ID of the job itself. Service B. So we're creating a second service and a second handle, basically pointing to the same data, to prove that it should be stored in the same shared state. So if we wait, not on the first handle, but on the handle we just created. It's a very roundabout way to prove the logic, but it should work. And wait from B. Require equal T worker dot status completed. State dot status. Did I set this up so it would work? I think the answer is no. Yeah, the answer is no. I need to make a note of this, because then I know to set it up after the stream. Let's just see if this works first. It does work. I should probably share my terminal as I run it. It does work. So what we're proving here is that I can create a second service which is pointing to the same database, and therefore we're proving that we're actually persisting the data in the database and it's not being kept in some sort of like in-memory setup. And by reusing the same job ID, we're ensuring that the job ID is persistent. Now, I want to make a note because I want to be able to fix this afterwards. So let me find a text editor. Okay. Recently with YouTube, I have this problem where if I put a song on loop, that after a certain amount of loops, it just stops having audio. It continues to play the song with no audio. Okay. So, that's good. That's the first task I wanted to do. I just wanted to prove that. Am I able to... So I still have the... The annoying thing about this overlay thing is it works. Oh, I see. The OBS disconnects after a while from the server sent events. I always forget, is it server sent or server side? Server sent. Yeah, it seems like OBS randomly disconnects after a while, so I need to also fix that. Okay. Right. So the actual meat of what I want to do is something along the lines of um, NQ many runs all. So NQ many will be the name of the new function we'll create for enqueuing multiple jobs at once. This won't be benchmarking. So it will start off very similar to this. This will be our North Star for what it is we're going to implement today. We don't need run A because it's all just going to be run A. So we're not going to enqueue like this. We're going to create a list of items. To say welcome args. Let's say user ID. I keep accidentally opening the interface to configure Z. B, C, D, and E. Okay. Then we're going to want something like this, but it's going to be a new method we will create, enqueue many. And how did enqueue work? So say for enqueue many, we would want to be able to say the base type like this. And then we'll pass in all of the items. And then we will probably just have a similar logic to normal. So this will be enqueue many. We would want multiple handles in response so we can... Do we want multiple handles or a single handle? You would want multiple handles because a handle contains the information. You would want multiple handles, but you would probably want a logic similar to, say, promise all in JavaScript, so you can wait on all handles. So if we're going to if we're going to receive multiple handles, then we would want to validate that the amount of handles we have received is equal to the amount of items we passed in. As such. And then we would want to validate the health of each handle individually. And probably even wait for those individual handles. Require no error. Wait. Handle dot. Oh yeah, but I don't have it until I have the states. I don't have the information. Hold on, what's no, just remind me of what a handle looks like. Yeah, I can't click on that because it doesn't exist yet. Just remind me, what does a handle have? Okay, it does have ID. I thought it had ID. Because I've just used it before, just today. So of course it has ID. It's just the ID Z isn't as helpful as Goland, unfortunately. Require equal T let's validate that it actually was completed. I think one of the biggest problems I have with Z with Golang is I don't know how JetBrains does it. But it's like when I do this, I swear to God in Goland it would actually already have the enums near the top. And it feels like in Z it's a chaotic mess. I say it's a chaotic mess, but it's obviously alphabetical. I just realized it's alphabetical. So in Goland it's not alphabetical, it's more intelligent. I don't know how they do it, but it just feels like it's probably just, what you're used to, right? And then because I'm used to it being the other way, it feels more intuitive the other way because I'm more used to it being that way. Anyway, so is there anything else we would want to assert here? We assert that everything is done. We assert the amount of handles we've received. The worker can tell me the amount of things it's ran through the recording counter, can't it? The recording worker. So the recording worker can tell me the amount of times it was ran, so we can use that to validate that the recording worker actually ran for the amount of times that the... Oh yeah. Well, to do that, I'm going to have to save this to a variable. I'm on that point where one of the hardest things in software engineering is knowing what to call something. I want to call it worker, but I can't call it worker. I want to call it recording worker if I can't. This worker, my worker, why not? My worker. And then that gives me access to see how much it was actually ran. And then ran every job. So obviously this isn't going to work because this doesn't exist yet. And that's the holy grail of what we have to implement. That's our North Star. And it will start with a query. And not a migration, a query. It will start with the query. And that query... Get jobs, insert. It's literally these. But I need them batch. I need them batched. So instead of command exec, I believe it's command batch. Though I may have to double check. Batch. Batch. Well, that all looks good. And then let's regenerate the doll. Well, it's not really the doll, it's the DB layer. So did that do what I needed it to do? Batch. Perfect. So we're going to need a new port. So we have NQ. And the new one would be something along the lines of NQ many with multiple specs and multiple IDs that it returns. NQ many inserts many rows in one batch and returns their IDs in spec order. Or otherwise it'll just be confusing. Yeah. Yeah, and that should be easy to validate and ensure with SQL. So we're going to need to have the same thing. It's not just in the store. Don't I also... won't this also have to be in the facade? Though, potentially, let's not worry about the facade just yet. Let's not worry about the facade just yet. Let's do the store first. One step at a time. So this is the code for enqueuing. So dump that down here. So we don't want people to be able to batch an infinite amount of things at once. I always like, whenever I'm thinking of an action, I always immediately try and think of how to reject the action. If that makes sense. So like, denial of service prevention. And at what basis an action should just be flat out rejected. So I think one example would be if, someone just queued in 1,000 or 10,000 items, there's no realistic time someone would need to batch that much. NQ many inserts a batch of roots and their first versions. Okay. Of job roots. So I do notice I never actually check here if the context has expired. Or here, for that matter. Or here, for that matter. Now, this one doesn't matter so much. Maybe we should be more proactive with checking the context. Well, let's do that. So if context dot error doesn't equals nil, return nil. So let's be a bit more proactive with checking that in the store, because it's fine to not always check this on small actions, but we should be a bit more proactive with checking this. I'm worried that I have actually been a bit complacent with checking this in general. So that may be something I might have to go back through the implementation and validate. Wait a minute, why am I returning nil? Uh, it's obvious that I'm a bit tired. A bit tired, but apparently finding errors with my code. So a bit tired, but not tired enough. Okay. Hmm. You know, sometimes I'm surprised that Golang doesn't have a zero concept. Like a keyword for zero. Like nil, but zero. It would actually be quite a useful concept to have. I have it in this like little programming language I've been working on. In the language I've been working on, there is no concept of nil, but zero is a keyword, and structs get fields defaulted to zero, a bit like Golang does. But then you can also check the field to zero or set something to zero. And when you set something to zero, is relevant to the data type in question. So setting a string to zero would be an empty string, right? Or you could say this string equals zero, and then you'd know if it's an empty string, right? I'm surprised they didn't do something like that for Golang. Because it seems logical given the way that Golang treats zero. Now, we can do it here too, not that I care too much. Oh yeah. I'm surprised I didn't do this last time. I'm really surprised I didn't do this last time. Maybe I was planning to handle the cancellations upstream, but even if you do that, there's no harm doing it here because you're protecting from a database query. So I think that's all good. I don't have to go down to these. Okay. So where was I? NQ many. Apparently I've called it many and batch. What have I called in the port? Many. Okay. Returns an array of strings, which is the inserted job IDs in order. Of entry. So, as I said, I always like to think, I always like to think in limits. And what I don't want, I would rather have a hard failure than perform an action which is obviously absurd. Because chances are, if someone's performing an absurd action, it's a mistake. Oh, I already have a... Do I even use this? I do use this. Claim limit. Oh, well, let's just... Okay, I already have this. Now, this is a bit of a silly function, don't you think? Probably when I wrote this function initially, I did it the old school way with all of the if statements. Hold on. Damn it. And then I tidied it up with the linter. Because we can just kill that now. That's better. That is better. Save that. So where was I? NQ many. So that's a hard cap, really just for claiming. So let's make a different one for enqueuing. Is the absolute ceiling a single... on a single NQ many cool? Sure. Let's make it high, because I would rather it be insanely high, not get in anyone's way, but still exist just in case, than then be the worst of both cases, where you both get in people's way and you yeah, I think in a future stream we'll probably dedicate it to the language in question. But it's still not ready for presentation. So let me just think for a second. Yeah, so if len spec is greater than len spec. What am I doing? I'm overthinking this entirely. Okay. Then we can just return an early error. Exceeds the batch cap. Batch cap. So, len specs spec. God, I'm so slow today. So slow. Way too tired. NQ batch hard cap. Worker domain air batch too large. Perfect. So we have a nice sentinel already for this. Right. Let's just have a think for a second before we dive into the actual logic. What are the guards we would like to have in place here? So another easy guard to have, and that could even be before the error check here, because doing error checking on a context is actually surprisingly computational heavy. When I say computational heavy, it's basically nothing, but it's more nothing than you'd think it should be. So specs, if specs equals 0, return nil nil. Change these to specs. So if we've passed in no specs, then do nothing. If the context has errored out for some reason, expired or whatever, then we want to early fail. And if they're just like shoving in 20,000 items at once, then something likely isn't right. And then we'll fail too. With the Sentinel. So it's up to them to stay within the limits, because I think I'm not going to bother to add configuration to that. Though we could. Right. So what does this do? This... So we're going to want to populate an array with all of these things. With all of these params. So this doesn't depend on this being done. It doesn't use the response at all. So we can construct all of the params ahead of time. And because we know the amount of params we're going to construct, we can pre-allocate it. Insert batch params. Len specs. Versions, same concept. Okay. And then we can pre-allocate our return object, which will just be the strings len specs. Strings? String. So that's all the allocations we need to do. Let's now loop over our specs. Range. And then let's create all of our params we're going to need. So it's going to be like this. Oh yeah, sorry. Batch params. No, am I being silly? What's wrong? X. Okay. Now. Good question. What is now? Now is here. Okay. So the same concept for the versions. Insert job root batch params. Insert job root params. Sorry, it's append, isn't it? Append job version batch params. And this will look like this. Okay. And then, last but not least, or last and almost certainly least, we would want to record the ID, which is recorded in the spec, like that. And it's not happy. Why are you not happy? Correct. There's no new variable. And then we will be able to say insert batch. And we will be able to shove all of this in one fell swoop. Now, if any item from the batch fails, it would mean that the whole batch fails. Let's have a more helpful error message than just returning error. Let's actually make it into a helpful error message. Inserting jobs in batch, and then we'll print the error. So len specs and then error. And then obviously this will just be IDs. I'm just trying to think about the behavior of it. So if anything fails, the whole batch fails. I think that's the behavior you'd want, honestly. So we've done it in the store, which I think just means that we're just going to have to now implement it into the facade. How does it work in the facade again? So enqueue calls enqueue on the service. So we're going to need to... I was right. I did need enqueue somewhere else. Why is this not a port? You are a port. You are a port. enqueue many. So this is the key difference, is we split spec and request into two different objects. Let's just reuse this wording. Persists many jobs from one request, one set of requests, one request set, and wakes workers for their queues. Their queues. Their queues. Their queues. Their queue. Their queues. Their queue. Their queue. Their queues. Their queues. Their queue. Syracuse. Okay. That's probably going over the line limit for the comment, but whatever. We'll sort that out afterwards. Which means service. We should have in here the logic for enqueuing, which we do. And we would want similar logic for enqueuing many. Enqueue many. So first things first, you're going to take in a slice of requests. I say Rex. Rex. Enqueue many. Build spec. So we'd have specs. Let's pre-allocate this. Make worker DTO enqueue spec len rex. Then that's just reallocate it. Or just allocate it, sorry. Specs. Oh, I guess. Yep. So we wouldn't hit the singular enqueue, would hit our new enqueue many, which should now allow us to pass in specs, which would return job IDs. Enqueue jobs. See, they could be of any kind, really. Len, 1 second. My music has killed itself. Okay. Let's hide this. This isn't important or relevant right now. Where am I? So, blah de blah de blah. That's all good. Just trying to figure out the best way to do this. With open telemetry. This would probably be at the end. It would have to be multiple requests with open telemetry, because even though it could pass in the quantity here, they could all have different kinds and queues. I could obviously batch that. Thinking about it. That would be better. To batch it by the kind in the queue and then only send it out like that. Let's leave it like this for now, but I can see myself having to refactor this to do that. And then it would be more efficient. I'm pausing because I don't know if I should just do it now. Regardless, we need to... Let's say jobs enqueued in batch. Let's not be too specific like we're being here, even though that would have been nice. Let's just say count. Jobs enqueued in batch. What am I missing? Job ID, sorry. Job IDs. You need to return the right thing. So, in regards to notifying the queues, I'm going to have to go through them and then notify the right queues with a certain deduping. Because we don't... Well, it's not like we don't want to. We don't need to notify the same queue multiple times. So we need scene queues. Make map string struct, even though it literally does nothing in this version of Golang. But I have faith that Google will fix that. Though who knows, they've fired like half of their engineers. Scene queues. Where am I? Yeah. So we need to dedupe this. Range specs. If I'm going to dedupe this here, I might as well just start deduping for the telemetry too. If scene queues spec dot queue. Okay. Continue. Scene spec dot queue equals struct. Um... Yeah, basically we're just doing this. Scene cues. Um... I'm pausing here because I could record the job that triggered the queue, but it wouldn't be all of the jobs that were sent to the queue. So I'm wondering if that's going to be confusing or not to keep around. Let's remove it to remove confusion, because if I don't, then it may give the impression that that was the only job sent to the queue. And that's misleading. So, anyway. Well, you're happy. Which means the only thing left is the facade. Thank you, Manny. So we're going to have the service. The args, well, let's say items. Put that into a slice. NQ option. Remind myself what options there even are to begin with. NQ option with max attempts, with timeout, with queue. Hold on. I'm pausing for a second because I'm trying to think. NQ request. Pausing. Because I didn't think about this. Because these would be presumably per request. I think I shouldn't worry about that for now. Because that's going to confuse me. And the first thing to do is to get it to work. So this is how we do the logic for the type erasing. Well, first things first, items. If items is nothing, then nothing happens. Always start with the guards before you think of the logic. Return nil nil. Secondly, this isn't even the definition we wanted. We wanted it to return a slice of handles. Would it be a slice of pointer handles or a slice of handles? Let's leave it like this for now, and then we'll question that more. We'll question that more if we need to. So we're going to have to do the thing where we're converting, where we're making the requests. How does that work here? So we make the requests individually here. We're going to have to do the same logic, but we're going to have to make the requests. So as always, let's pre-allocate it. Worker DTO enqueue request len items for I item range items rex I yeah, because this is see, I'm trying to think of the developer experience here. Like, would you want to be able to pass enqueue option and then it overrides every item's request, or would you want it to be on an individual basis? Because I could do this. I could do this. And I could do this. Then I could do this. Then this would be like this. Load. We need to type erase it. But that would be like this. Args. The item. Item kind. So this would be happy if I do this. I'm trying to think of the developer experience here. And if this even makes sense, because by setting the enqueue option, you'd be configuring it for every single request. And some of these didn't even make that much sense. Hold on, where were they? Enqueue option. With max attempts, so that would set all of them to have the same max attempts. Okay, valid. With timeout, it would set them all to have the same timeout. Sure. With queue, it would set them all to have the same queue. Now that's the bit that I don't know too much about. Because technically downstream I did make it where it would technically be capable of having different queues. But then this would make it so enqueue many would ultimately want every item you're enqueuing to share the same queue. And the reason why I say this is the alternative is that you could have a slice of enqueue options. But that's just, that seems really bad DX. So then logically, you would have to call enqueue many multiple times, and you would have to take responsibility of segmenting things by queue. How much are people going to want to be enqueuing many on different queues? Probably not that much. It might be that I need to find an alternative way to allow people to override things by queue. Okay, let's just leave it like that for now. Let's go to the facade. Enqueue many. Requests. So okay, we'll go with this, where this is like it's a bit of a shotgun approach, but that the enqueue many will override everything in items. It's kind of a shotgun approach, but sure. Is this set to just to validate? Okay, sure. Set to my JSON. Good. Enqueue many. So now we have our requests. We can just dump all this. This will say job IDs, enqueue many. And then we should be able to pass in all of the requests, and you should be moderately happy. Enqueue batch of items. Len items. Enqueue many. We'll enqueue the batch of items. Let's. So I'm going to have to create new handles for everything. So we're going to want to pre-allocate our handles. Now, the amount of handles should never deviate from the amount of items, because that could never happen, I think. No, we could just do it like this, based on the job IDs, rather than on items. So for job IDs, handles, ID, worker service, handles. Why are you unhappy? You unhappy because I'm doing... Okay, that's better. Makes isn't a thing, that's correct. Thank you, not Larvae, for following. Thank you very much. Okay. So, let me just think for a second. So, is this done? Have I done? Am I done? Blah, 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 blah. Enqueue many. Enqueue request. How did I make the custom to-do dashboard? Well, I would love to demonstrate it a bit more for you, but it's currently kind of broken. Because it should be, I'm trying to demonstrate with the mouse, but obviously you can't see. It should actually be updating in real time. But basically, long story short, I found this out about OBS, which is that you can. I'm trying to figure out if I can just share my OBS, but I'll just create an infinite thing going in, won't it? You can just create a browser, something in the browser. And so I have my own framework called Pico, which I just use to create websites. So it's just my this is my framework Pico for Golang. But it's actually quite easy, where all you have to do is you just create a normal website in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or whatever tool you want. You know, for me, I did it in Pico. And the funny thing is that if you set part of the background to be transparent, you know, like when you have, you know, in the you know, the CSS background of something, if you just set it to the word transparent, like literally the keyword transparent, like that, background color transparent, it allows you to, if you use the browser tool in OBS, and then you put it on top of all of your other elements in the browser, in OBS, but you have parts of it transparent, then it allows it to render things underneath the browser. And so all of these elements you see, you know, like all of the, like, you know, the fancy stuff, that's been rendered in a browser, just a normal browser web page. And my camera here is underneath that element, but there's a box here with background transparent. So if you can just write a normal web page in HTML and CSS, you can make it look however fancy you want quite easily, because it's just HTML and CSS, and then just create boxes with background transparent, which is kind of cool. And I might even have, I don't know if I have an example. Technically, on this bit here, you see there's an image overlaying, like this is a little ghost guy, and it's technically overlaying it, or my name here is technically overlaying the box, and that's part of the web page. Like my name down there is part of the web page. But because the background is transparent, even though that's on top of me, my video is able to show underneath. So yeah, that's how it's done. It's as soon as I found this out, I was quite amazed, because it makes it really easy to make whatever overlay you want. And the reason why my thing is kind of broken here is this is meant to update with server sent events whenever I change something, but I need to fix something, because for some reason, once the stream has been running for a bit, OBS seems to disconnect from the persistent connection. So what I'm hoping is I can fix that, and then I will be able to have complete control while the stream is running, to be able to change things on the overlay with just server sent events. So yeah, that's how that works. Okay. So let's run our test again. Why would it take 4 seconds? So I'm happy that it worked. Why would it take 4 seconds? Shouldn't they be done in the same batch? Because the claim batch, I think, is 10 by default. Why would it take 4 seconds? And it's so suspiciously just above 4 seconds, which implies to me that it's all waits. We have 1 second waits. So why would it take 4 seconds? So I still haven't set up the debugger. And that is probably what I would have wanted to have had right now. NQ many. Okay, so we hit NQ many. First thing I want to just prove to myself, this is completely off topic to the problem, but this would work, wouldn't it? Okay, good. Okay, so we go into NQ many. So obviously none of this should take 4 seconds. Oh, hold on. Do we take 4 seconds because we wait 4 seconds individually here? No, wait, that shouldn't make sense. Format is imported and not used. Let's just do this for a second. Shouldn't they be done in the same cycle? Why wouldn't they be done in the same cycle? And even if they weren't done in the same cycle, why is it 4 seconds and not 5 seconds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is it 4 seconds and not 5 seconds? Is it still 4 seconds? 13 seconds. 6, 7. Okay, well, that matches. So it's the amount of seconds is n minus 1. So we're probably batching to the database fine, but we're not batching. Um, should have gone to implementation. Go to implementation. So we store in the store. And is it that we're failing to notify? I really want the debugger. I really, really, really want the debugger. Well, because there's only one queue, which is the default queue. There's only one queue. Everything at this point has been enqueued. What am I missing? Oh, sorry, printf. What have okay, so we see all of our job IDs. So it is, and that was instant. That was instant, so that's not where our slowdown is. Where is our slowdown? Okay. When we notify, sure, why not? Eco log level equals trace. Okay, time to start reading logs. I mean, come on, look, it's exactly 1 second apart. Is the problem imaginary? What I don't have in my logs is any indication when a job started. Trace for sure. No, it's not imaginary. They are going one at a time. I was wondering if all the jobs... Well, obviously it doesn't make sense now we saw where the log was. Yeah, you can see that. Between the time a job starts and finishes, there's like no time difference at all. Not even a nanosecond. Something is causing this to happen sequentially. See, I would have thought this would have been happening in groups of 10. Hold on, what's the Q limit? Don't tell me the Q limit's 1. That'd be absurd. There's no way the Q limit's 1. There's no way the Q... Could the Q concurrency? There's no way. There's just no way. Default Q concurrency. 1,000. Yeah, of course. It's not 1. But is it being set to 1? If the queues are not configured, then we default the queues to default. If there are no default queue concurrencies, then we default it to be default with 1,000. I have a slight suspicion I'm going to have to figure out how to get the debugger to work with Z. Because I need to know why we're not doing this with higher concurrency. I mean, if this is set to 1,000... So surely we should be limited by the total pull jobs per CPU. Pull jobs per CPU. If global concurrency is less or equals to 0, then it's equals to the maximum of the number of CPUs times 3. I have like 24 CPUs. So that would be like big enough. Could we be hitting this? That would be absurd. I have a feeling I'm going to have to figure out how to get the debugger to work with Z. What did I do wrong? I did this wrong. 1. Okay. Global concurrency is 1. Well, then that would explain everything. Right, so I up the global concurrency, now it finishes instantly. Why is the global concurrency 1? I'm sorry? Am I being dumb? Did we even come in here? We don't come in here. The global concurrency must be set to 1 from elsewhere. Let me guess, I put it in at the test suite like an idiot. Like an idiot. Like an idiot. Like an idiot. It's coming in from the test suite, isn't it? Somehow. Where are you being set to? Who's setting you? Who's setting you to 1? If anything, you should be set to, well, not set at all. Oh. I'm setting it to 1. Here. I'm setting it to 1 here. Oh, wait a minute. Is this downstream? Hold on. I need to just like clear everything. Is this where we're setting it to 1? New pool is the only thing that's setting it intelligently. New pool. Pool config. So what we're saying is we need to lift this up. I'll keep the logic in new pool. And lift up the logic to here, I think. Well, hold on. Should it just be set here? I'm all getting myself confused. Config or global concurrency. Service config. I keep losing myself. Global concurrency. Let's shove that in there. That fixes it. Thank you for the follow, Illusionary Moon. Okay, so batching now works, and we see this lovely answer with, this is what I wanted to see initially. Job started, job started, job started, job completed, job completed, job completed. That's perfect. So, because I'm doing this, I think I'm going to remove the max because it can give an, even though it's nice for protection, it can give a confusing, understanding of what is actually setting that. But hold on, which file? Let's set in the pool. All jobs per CPU. See, this I don't like. Hold on. So right now the pool, what I'm trying to figure out is should the pool and the service, when does the service use this? Go to, can I be told this? Can I be told this somehow, please? However, does the service actually ever use this information, or is it just for logging? Because I need to know if the service needs to have its own, because right now we have pool jobs per CPU. Are they begging to have different calculations and therefore a different const? Or is it actually technically the same data? So I think for now it's the same data, but I need to keep my eye on that because they might be begging. I think this is just used for logging rather than them begging for different. Why are you all exposed? You're not exposed. Everything's exposed. Why is everything exposed? That's a bit messy. Can I do rename symbol? How does that work? Whoa. New interface. Um, do I press something or do something? Okay, I'm confused. Queues. Okay, whatever. Can't I just do blanket renames? Can't just say accept on the screen. I'm confused. Sure. Queues. Can I just accept? Save? Or is that all I have to do? Close. Okay, rename symbol. Is it done it? I think. I don't know. Rename symbol. I don't know if I'm missing something. Why I made these exposed. Sometimes I have a tendency to expose by default when I don't need to. Okay, it all passes still. These probably do want to be exposed. But these didn't, for sure. Okay, well, we just tidied that up. Okay. Right. Well, that's enqueuing a batch done. So the next thing is going to be observing the being able to observe on the queues a bit more. And the reasoning is because I want to build an interface for this. And so the store is going to have to be able to keep metrics on hand about all of the jobs in motion, pending, or whatever. And so the store's ultimately going to need lots of helper functions, which I could then later use for observability. So before I proceed, I'm going to just have a bit of a drink while I think of what this actually needs to work. Because I don't know of all of the things we would want right now. But what I already have an interface that we use internally for monitoring applications built with Pico. But I know one of the things is that we really want to have a nice interface to be able to monitor and observe and action upon these jobs. And so let's say we enqueued many jobs. Um, like, why is Zed so reluctant to suggest sprintf to me? I don't understand. I'm really curious how much logic is in Golan's just automatic sorting of their things. I wonder if they've done something where like they've gone over a corpus, like a data set, and they've ordered these things like from standard lib automatically based on their frequency. Or maybe they do that when they're indexing, actually. Now think about it. When they're indexing your project, do they sort what they'll suggest you based on the frequency um of that method? So let's say we've got lots of things in the store. One thing we would be able to want to know is how much stuff is in that store. So right now we don't have this concept. But let's say we had, say, count pending as a concept. Okay. Because I'm probably going to want to have multiple things here, like, count pending, count failed, count running. You're going to want all of the metrics. Probably to begin with, we could just start with one and then build out properly after that. Give me a second to think, and then we'll flesh this out. Right. Because we will want to have a nice interface to be able to retrieve all of the statistics we want. Let's start with count pending. So, test store, count pending. So, we will only need to implement this into the store because the thing that needs analytics would then, the thing that reports the analytics will then only need to be able to instantiate the store to get this data. There's no need or point in instantiating a worker when you just want to report on things. So let's start with always the good place to start, which is a new query. So let's bring this down. It's always a good place to start. A nice new query. Okay. We would want to query the job index. Get job index. Something like that. Let's say count pending jobs. Select count as pending from job index where status equals pending and deleted at is null. I'm having a think if there's any other queries we should start with in addition to this. Because there's two different ways something could be pending. This is jobs that literally have the status of pending. You could also calculate something as being pending if it's in a non-terminal state. Count non-terminal jobs. And then we would want to say status not in, and then have all of our terminal states. I need to be reminded what they are. I need to be reminded what they are. Well, that's all of the states up there. Is terminal. So that'll be all of our non-terminal jobs. And then the alternative is all of the jobs which are claimable. Count claimable. It sounds like a name, doesn't it? Count claimable. Count claimable jobs. And claimable jobs are either pending or scheduled. Okay. Can we rebuild the doll? Let's make sure that these generated properly because I want to make sure that the not ins and the ins generated as expected. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, there's no reason why I wouldn't, because I'm not actually using it for introspection to generate the typing. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So, starting to realize how tired I am. Where's the store? Where is the store? Worker domain. Sorry. It's not in there, is it? It's here. So we will want to add it to our ports store. Let's just do it quickly down here, and then we'll tidy it up afterwards. Count pending. And then we'll get the count and the error. What did I call them? Count pending. Count claimable jobs. I keep thinking of the count from Sesame Street. And count non-terminal jobs. We'll probably want other things in the future, like, total count and count terminal jobs and count deleted jobs and count undeleted jobs, blah, 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 blah. But let's just start here. So then in the store, once again, let's just go all the way down to here. We'll tidy this all up afterwards. Func. 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 Count pending. I need you on the store. S dot queries dot count pending jobs. Oh, wait a minute. Count pending. Why did I call it count pending and not count pending jobs? Count pending jobs. Count pending jobs. Count pending jobs. If error, return 0, format error F. Counting pending jobs. Perfect. Perfect. Count non-terminal jobs. Counting non-terminal jobs. I could have probably been a bit more helpful with this as. non-terminal, just like this. Job count. That's a lot nicer, isn't it? All of them. Job count. I don't like how my query system turned this from an uppercase C to a lowercase c. So I might have to see what I can do about that. In fact, I'm going to make a note of this. Do I still have my file eco bugs? I think I do down here. Issues with Pico. Okay, let's make a note of this, because like that. So, becomes the following query becomes would be nicer if the field name becomes job count. Job count, instead maintaining the C capitalization. Query. Okay. I'm trying to figure out if there's a reason why I did that intentionally, or if that's a mistake. Probably it's a mistake and I'm just doing two lower and then capitalizing the first character. But let's not dive into the querier right now. Stay on topic. Job count, whatever, job count. Count claimable jobs. Counting claimable. What I'm wondering is if I'm losing information here that I'd rather not lose. For example, when I'm counting claimable jobs, I probably want to know the depth. Sorry. My mind is going to sleep. I probably want to know the queues. That's been claimable for, so I can know the depth of the queues. That's what I meant to say. So count claimable jobs. Group by queue. How does my query handle this? So I'm thinking the answer is it may not be handling it, actually. Maybe another issue of Pico. 4. The following query a query. Now hold on, this would work. If it responded with many, right? Because it's no longer giving me a singular result. Hmm. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. Hold on. I'm an idiot. Because I also have to do it like this. Okay. Is that correct? Yes. Yeah, I think that's correct. So hold on. This wasn't a problem, I don't think. Because then we could say you'd find the right home for this, to be honest with you. Let's just shove it down here for now. Type claimable jobs depth. Q string. I need to put struct here, obviously. Count in 64. Count is the number of claimable rows in that queue. In said queue. Queue is the queue name the count is grouped under. Claimable jobs depth is the grouped jobs depth. I don't know. I not thinking straight. So hold on. Because then that would allow us to see, you know, the amount of things waiting per queue, which is going to be quite important when we're trying to analyze if a queue is behind. So what we'd want to do here is counting claimable jobs. Out. Let's reallocate this. Workers domain dot claimable jobs depth. Len rows is now plural because it's now many. For I range rows out workers domain claimable jobs depth. Q would be rows I queue. Count would be rows I job count. And then we would return out. We're unhappy. We're unhappy because we now return this. Worker domain dot claimable job depth. Obviously this is now nil. So this is going to be the basis of how we're going to do all analytics on this. We might want to report and record this to OpenTelemetry as well. Because that's very important information to pass on to OpenTelemetry. Because then you can easily create alerts around it as well. Like, for example, if a queue depth exceeds, say, 1,000, then obviously something is extremely wrong. And it would work nicely with OpenTelemetry because we can set the field, the attribute, so you would be able to filter it by query as well. Sorry, queue. So, hotel. Queue depth metric dot int 64 isn't it a gauge observable gauge. Ending metric dot int 64. What are you doing? Int 64 observable gauge. We'll add comments to that in a bit. So we're going to have to initialize this. Queue depth error equals meter int 64 observable gauge worker dot queue dot depth Yeah, I've tried to align Z with the theme that I have going for the overlay. Um, I don't normally use Z day to day. I actually use Goland. Um, and if I'm going to be honest with you, I much prefer Goland. But one of the things I was getting quite annoyed at was with Goland, it's a bit awkward running multiple instances of it or having like different themes and configurations, and it kept clashing. And the reason is I wanted to have a nice looking stream setup. Because when I code for real, my font size is like half of this size. I'm trying to like point in the right direction, but I can't do the. There we go. My font size is normally half this size normally, and so on stream it looks too small. And I don't want to be having my colors for on stream, in the normal setup and all of this. Why do I prefer Goland? It's one of those things like, why do I prefer JetBrains products in general? And it sounds silly to say, I can't tell you why. But when you feel it, you feel it. And what I mean by that is it just feels like it's more intelligent. It's all of the IntelliSense things that they do. It just seems to work together better. And really what it's a question of is it's not really a question about Z itself. It's I got a really high resolution monitor, but it's really a question about Go Plus and LSPs in general. Is that it's quite common that LSPs are just, I don't want to say badly made, because it's not that they're badly made. Maybe it's that they're lazy loaded, I don't know. But the amount of introspection that JetBrains tends to have with their products. Yeah. I don't know like how you're meant to say it. If you're meant to say go please or go please or go LSP. Yeah, JetBrains makes their own custom parser for every single language they support. And it just works better. It's just as simple as that. It just works better. And I also think that the memory complaints aren't always that founded. JetBrains does use more memory. It's in the JVM. It's all horrible and all of that. But the thing is that sometimes LSPs tend to use more memory than JetBrains does. Like you can go on about how lightweight Z is, and Z is extremely lightweight. But I'm using about 500 megabytes just for my project, for the Go LSP, Go Plus. Whereas JetBrains would use the same amount of memory doing its own thing. So, the argument that JetBrains is a heavy IDE isn't always founded when you start adding in all of these, required tooling that you end up having to use. If anything, at that point, it becomes about the same weight as all the rest. 10 gigabytes of RAM is just insane. I bet you if you were to load it in a JetBrains product, it would use way less. But that's the problem you tend to find with LSPs is they tend to be a lot heavier. And it's partly with how LSPs are made themselves, where they're trying to be a bit lazy loading in general. And ironically, by trying to be lazy loading, you're just using more RAM because it's not intelligently stored all the information in a central place. Yeah, it does cost money. It does cost money. That's the downside. For me, considering how much it helps me day to day with my job, I just consider it a tool. That's just essential, right? Um, but yeah, that's the downside. That's the downside. Um, the other reason why I like JetBrains products is I tend to find that their debuggers tend to be so much more useful than any other debugger that goes through some sort of like DAP protocol or, you know. But I still haven't figured out how to set up the debugger for Z yet. And I'm going to have to do that because I keep running into problems where I keep thinking I wish I had a debugger right now, and I haven't got it working yet. And I bet you'll only take me 10 minutes to get it working, but yeah, that makes sense. When I started programming, there wasn't things like VS Code. Um, there was things like NeoVim, obviously, and Vim in general, and I used to use Vim back in the day. Um, but I used to use a lot of products like God, I can't even remember the names now. I used to use Visual Studio back in the day. I'm trying to remember the name of the one that I used to use the most, and it's lost on me. Either way, I was brought up using full IDEs more from the very beginning. Oh, now it's I used to use Eclipse back in the day, but that's not the one I was thinking of. NetBeans. I used to use NetBeans well a lot because I used to do a fair amount of Java as well. Yeah, but these days, with AI programming and all of this, the IDE matters less because if you run into a bug, you just keep asking the AI to fix it. Do it better with no bugs. But yeah, I think it's all going to change in half a year when they actually start charging people the actual cost of AI. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked how much it's actually going to cost them. But anyway, so what was I doing? Setting up hotel. So we can say metric with description. Claimable jobs per queue. Metric dot with units job. And then we have the other one, which was pending. In 64 observable gauge. Worker dot pending. My tabbing is acting a bit weirder than normal, but whatever. Total non-terminal jobs cross. I think I'm actually going to rename this. Worker. Wait a minute. Hold on, this is all wrong. Worker. Worker. Yeah, worker pending. I'm having that stereotypical moment again where the hardest thing in software engineering is naming things. Worker pending or worker... Okay, let's just leave it as worker pending. Metric dot with unit. Job. Why are you... Oh, that's why. And then we'll copy this over. Okay. So that sets up our OTel metrics. Now we just need to weave them in. The first question is not actually how would we weave them in, but where would we weave them in? Where would we weave them in? Because we can register a callback here. Count pending jobs. Because we can make an interface. Blah 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 blah. Can I just shove it here? Just until we've. Can I just shove it here for now? And then I'll take it away and put it somewhere tidier. Once we know we're happy. So let's say. Ugh. Go on. Count claimable jobs. Store. Count non-terminal jobs. This will be our sampler. Well, maybe I'll just call it sampler until I've thought of a better name. Depth sampler. Sure, why not? Depth sampler. And then we would be able to, if I recall correctly, you can register a callback. Like meter dot register callback. Need to do that. Metric dot callback. You don't allow me to click into you. Metric dot callback. Context metric observer. Observer. Okay. Well, I'm not using mutexes. So, register callback. Um, and then it was observer. Metric dot observer. Observable? Hold on. It was observer. Why did I think it was observer? Yeah, okay. There's different implementations of observable. I might need to do some Googling. Haven't I done this before? This before? And then you want the... Oh, sorry. No, I'm far too tired. Holy shit, I'm far too tired. This is the callback. That's the instruments. Yes. Okay. Yes. So, I called it QDepth and I called it pending. That is a terrible name. Honestly. Jobs completed. Jobs pending. I do it like this. Rename symbol. Jobs pending. I think you just do that. Okay. Jobs queue depth. And then where was I? Jobs queue depth, jobs pending. Those are the observables. Perfect. And then the callback was in fact observer. So that's where I read it. Okay. Okay, you're happy. If error doesn't equals nil, return nil, format error F, registering worker depth gauge callback error. Sorry, there's no... Just return the error. Oops. Unregister. So I'm going to have to unregister probably as a defer. No, wait a minute. That wouldn't work. Because I'll just unregister immediately. Well, one step at a time. Let me continue to think this through. Yeah, I've done a it's been a few years since I've really driven, delven. It's been a few years since I've really delved into Rust. I don't even know when I last went into Rust, if they even had the Rust IDE yet. But I will always highly recommend the JetBrains IDEs because they're just so consistent in their quality. And thank you for following, by the way. I find they're so consistent in their quality. I personally have the all products package. The way that it typically works is if you pay for their... Well, you're going to try out the free one, which I highly recommend you start with. But the way that it works is if you pay for the IntelliJ one, it tends to be able to do what all of the other products can do, but with just being one version out of date. So if you do decide you do like Rust Rover, then my recommendation is to always try IntelliJ, because then it gives you the experience of all of the other IDEs in one. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll look forward to hearing from you again, and then you can tell me your experience with Rust Rover, and let me know if it's less than 10 gigabytes of RAM for you to run. Anyway, thank you very much. Okay. So we were trying to register the callbacks for Hotel, so this could link in automatically. I can tell I'm getting quite tired because my brain is actively working at half the speed now. I'm getting so tired I can't even remember why I made this interface. It's to be able to pass it into here. I'm just trying to remember why. We're going to want to have the sampler like this. And obviously this is going to be the store. If that wasn't clear already, this is the store that's going to be passed in. It's just we're going to be creating an interface close to the consumer like Golang likes you to do so. But let's just say sampler for now, just to keep my mind needing to process less. Because then it would be something like sampler sampler dot count claimable jobs. That would take that context. If error doesn't equals nil, return format to error f, sampling queue depth, and then pass down the error. And then we could go over each depth item. And then we have the observer. Observe int64. Into jobs queue depth. This will be the sample count for sure. And then we could say metric dot with attributes. Attribute dot string. Did I make a cons for this? I did. Sample dot queue. I think I. Oh, what am I? Okay. And then we can do the same thing for jobs pending. Let's say pending. Sampler dot count non-terminal jobs. If error doesn't equals nil, return formats dot error f. Sampling pending total. Error. Observer dot observe int64 pending. Jobs pending. Which means we can. This is going to want to be in its own function. And we're going to have to store this somewhere. Because you're going to want to unregister in the shutdown. We can't just defer this. This has to be in the shutdown. So, let's say func register gauges, register observables, register gauges. So you're going to want to metric.registration. It's probably going to be metric registration error, probably. Return reg error. Nil. I mean, nil. Sampler. Sampler will be a depth sampler. You can go elsewhere. Let's just shove you up here for now. Next to your brethren. Where was I? Depth sampler. Sampler. Okay. Which means what I can do is I can coerce the type. Well, it's not really coercing, it's validating that the store is a valid depth sampler. And then we can register our gauges. If error is nil, do we have a logger here? Yes, we do. Failed to register worker depth gauges. Now we're going to have to store this. Registration. In the actual... I'm going to have to actually store this registration in the actual service. S dot gauge. Gauge. I'm not spelling gauges correct. Yes, I am spelling correct. For some reason, the word gauge is looking really weird to me now. Let me just Google that. Gauge. Correct. Okay. Gauge registration. So it's fine if this isn't registered. This is optional. That's fine. That's fine. So this is definitely not going to be in the right place for field alignment, but we'll tidy that up afterwards. So gauge registration. And then we have shutdown somewhere. Let's yeah. So we need to unregister them. Um failed to unregister worker depth gauges. Logger domain error. Damn. I got so lost in the source of doing OTel, which I didn't even set out to fully do, that I've forgotten what we're actually originally focusing on. Go test v dot tags integration dot. No, we have done something silly at some point. In the store, on line 55, I've done something silly. Oh, that's just things not matching the interface. So hold on, I probably didn't update the port. As such, that's just because I didn't actually use the exact name I set out to use. Hold on, I don't care about all of this. Just give me the answer for what I've put in. Come on. Okay, that passes. Well, that's observe the queue done. So I think I wouldn't be doing the next step, which is to review the schema today. But the point is, we're getting to the point where we almost have a functioning basis of a worker system now for the framework. And then after that is going to be building it into something fully. Once we've wired it into the bootstrap, as it says up there, then that's when it will actually be in theory usable. Probably not. I'll need to do some code generation, I think, to get it fully usable. But once we've wired it into the bootstrap, that's when we're approaching it being usable in the framework. So we've done a fair amount. Okay. I think I'm going to call it here. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and everyone who followed. we made some good progress. And, yeah. I hope you all have a nice day and a nice evening and all of that stuff. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. Bye bye.